Hello and welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Show. I am your host, Jay Jones. Black Entrepreneur Blueprint was created specifically to educate and inspire Black entrepreneurs to launch, build, and grow successful businesses. Join us as we help build an economic power base in the Black community by promoting business ownership. If you are currently an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, we invite you to join us every week here at Black Entrepreneur Blueprint.
Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, episode number 382. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and today we have another outstanding and informative show in store for you. Today, family, we're going to have a serious discussion, and our topic is going to be delayed destiny, how to validate yourself and create your sweet spot in business and life. Delayed destiny, how to validate yourself and create your sweet spot in business and life. So many times, guys, we're delayed in our destiny because we're waiting for other people to validate us. So, for example, you need that hiring manager to validate you to get that new job. It's based on their assumption or recommendation whether you're going to get paid or not. They have to validate you. You want to start a new business and you're talking to your spouse or partner or your friends and they haven't validated you. And so today, guys, we're going to talk about some steps and some tips to help you create your own sweet spot in business and in life. But before we get to today's show, guys, I just want to share a few things with the BEB family. I have a super exciting announcement to make. This is something that's been in the works for a long time, and finally it's come to fruition, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But first and foremost, I want to welcome all first-time listeners to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Welcome to the BEB family. Please stick around until the end of today's broadcast, and I'm going to share all my social media contact information and my resource links, such as the link to my new book, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses. 2 platforms I created to help circulate dollars in the worldwide black economy, BeSmartByBlack.com and HireBlackFreelancers.com. Also, I just want to remind you guys about my new rebranded, rebooted BEBacademy.com. You can get 5 days free access to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Academy, and it has all of my online courses, trainings, workshops, masterclasses, resources, and tutorials to launch, build, and grow a successful business. Just go to BEBacademy.com, and once again, you get 5 days free access to everything inside the academy. Now, here's some big news, guys, something I've been waiting to do for a long time. You know, I get tons of questions via email, direct message, and all of that. And I wanted to find a platform that I could talk live to the BEB family every week and answer questions live. That's my superpower. So when I'm out live at a speaking engagement or on my book tour, I tell the audience that one of the most impactful parts of this interaction is the audience asking me questions, because it allows me to answer specific questions and give actionable steps. And what I found is a lot of you may have questions that you want to ask me, but somebody else may ask that question when they have the opportunity. So it allows you to learn also from other people's questions. So with that being said, I was approached by a platform called callin.com, CALLIN.com. And Callin is pretty much Clubhouse on steroids. It's actually created for podcasters and creators. And so when you go to Clubhouse and if you miss a live room, that's it. You're never going to be able to hear that room again. Now on Callin, it's very similar in terms of the setup as Clubhouse, but you can actually record the live rooms. So Callin reached out to me and they wanted me to create exclusive content for their platform. And since I always wanted to do a live call-in show, my new show or companion show. I'm still doing Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. That's my primary show. But my companion show is going to be called Ask Jay Live. So if you go to askjlive.com, that'll take you to a page on my website, and it'll have the link to actually subscribe to the show. Or you can go to callin.com, and then you're going to have to, just like in Clubhouse, you're going to have to create a profile, and then you can search for Jay Jones at Ask Jay Live. And so I tell you guys, every Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time, make sure you subscribe to callin.com, subscribe to the show, and we're going live every Tuesday. And the show is going to be a little bit different. Sometimes I'm going to have live guests on that can also answer questions. Other times it'll be a solo show, me just talking about a topic, and then we'll take live questions about your business, the show topic, or anything that you want to ask me. And I think this is super important because I get so many questions via DM and email, and I'm not able to address them all. And so this is a great way for me to interact with the audience every week. So once again, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint comes out 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every Monday morning on all your major podcast platforms and YouTube. And the new Ask Jay Live show will only be exclusively on callin.com. And that's every Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'm super excited to talk to all the BEB family members, and we can have a live discussion and dialogue about anything entrepreneurship, about your business, about my business, about anything. And it's going to be a great time. Also, once again, we're going to have guests on periodically, and they'll be able to answer your questions. So if you have an iPhone, unfortunately right now, just like Clubhouse, it's only on the Apple App Store, but it is going to come out for Android shortly. So you can go to askjlive.com. It'll take you to a page on my website. Click the link and subscribe to the show, and I'll see you. My first show is starting this Tuesday, tomorrow, at 12 Eastern Standard Time, 9 Pacific, and I believe the date will be November the 9th. All right, so looking forward to hearing you guys on the new Ask Jay Live portion of the show. All right, I wanted to get that out the way, guys, but I'm super excited about it, and it's something that I wanted to make sure you guys knew about, and I'll be sending out stuff via social media. So I mentioned to you guys about this partnership, and previously my stance was I wasn't going to take any partnerships or advertising on the podcast. Having spoken to some of my advisors and family members, they reminded me that the platform is not just for me, it's for the BEB family members. And anything that we can do to elevate our entrepreneur IQ, I definitely want to do it within reason. So anybody I partner with understands that I'm going to say what I want to say. I have creative control over all of my content. So my partnership with Callin, it's understood. I have total, complete creative control. So anybody that I partner with or that's on my platform, they understand that's a no-brainer. If you don't understand that, then it's a deal breaker, because I have to be true to who I am and true to the mission of Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. With that being said, when the new website drops, we're going to have all types of opportunities for BEB family members that have businesses to partner with the brand. So I want to encourage all Black entrepreneurs, all Black businesses that are aligned with BEB and it makes sense for you to partner with us, to check out some of our marketing opportunities. And once the new website goes up, there'll be a page over there and it'll talk all about partnering or marketing with BEB. We wanted to make it affordable for all sizes of business to partner with BEB, and we have packages for as little as $150. But I'll give you guys more information once the new website drops. All right, guys, let's jump into today's content. Delayed Destiny: How to Validate Yourself and Create Your Sweet Spot in Business and in Life. Now, once again, many times, guys, we delay this destiny because we always think that we need to be validated by somebody else. So what we're going to do today, guys, I'm going to give you some real life examples of people who've created their own sweet spots and have taken their destiny in their own hands without being validated by anyone else. And this is who I'm talking to in today's episode. So I'm talking to employees that want to transition into entrepreneurs. And I'm also talking to entrepreneurs that have created something that turned into something that they don't want it to be. So maybe you created a business and you're working too many hours. Maybe you're not fulfilled by what you're doing, or maybe your business has transformed into something that you can't stand. And that can happen because it actually happened to me one time. I created an alarm business and it got to the point where it was out of hand. I didn't have the right mix of people. I couldn't stand going into the office. And finally, I sold the business. But I actually created a monster. And so sometimes that can happen to you too. But we're going to talk about how to create or how to validate yourself and create your sweet spot in business and in life. Now, today's show is going to be a little shorter because I spent a little extra time talking about the new call-in partnership. But the show actually was inspired by a conversation that I had with my cousin. And I like to give you guys the background or the story behind some of the show topics, because a lot of them are based on real life situations or experiences that I have. So this was inspired by a conversation I had with my cousin. And my cousin's daughter was born hearing impaired, and she's a college graduate, and she's looking for a full-time job in social media as a social media manager or specialist. And he was telling me that she was a little upset that she didn't get the offer from the company, but they did say that they would offer her some contract work, which is a start. And so one of the things that I said to him was, what is her ideal job situation? And now let's go and look at how we can create that sweet spot. Because once again, as I mentioned in the opening, if you're looking for a job, you're letting somebody else really validate you. They're validating your skill set. They're validating, hey, are you worthy of earning this salary? They're putting that stamp of approval on your head. And so I've been there, done that. But what I had to figure out was, let me see if I can create my own situation where I can do the work that I love or enjoy, and I can validate myself without having to go through somebody to validate me. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and then I'm going to give you some steps and some tips to do so. Let's start off with a personal situation. So, for example, I wanted to host a radio show, right? So I couldn't go in there with no background as a radio talk show host and say, hey, guess what? Hire me. I've never done this before, but trust me, I'm good. That wasn't going to happen. So what I wanted to do is I created a show, and the first version of this Black Entrepreneur Blueprint podcast was actually called The Entrepreneur Advantage. So I went to an AM station in Philadelphia. I had to buy airtime once a week. I believe it was every Tuesday morning I was on, and I would talk about entrepreneurship. Very similar to what I do now, but I was taking live calls and I was keeping the topics generic in nature. Now, obviously, I'm focused on Black entrepreneurs. And so when I went in there, they were like, yeah, we like the concept of the show. It'll be $400 a week. I think that's what I was paying for an hour's worth of time. And literally, I was like, man, I was getting experience. So I was trying to create that sweet spot. I was trying to get the experience that nobody would give me. So I had to pay to learn that experience. I learned how to interview people. I learned how to work the board in the radio station. Even though they did have a board operator, sometimes I would play around myself. I learned how to take calls. I learned how to break up the time. When you're on the radio, you have commercials, and you usually go in the blocks of about 12 minutes, and then you have maybe 3 minutes of commercials or in between time. And for a 60-minute show, you got 4 blocks, and then you have, the 4 blocks of commercials in between. So I learned a whole lot of stuff, but nobody was going to hire me or pay me to do that. So the sweet spot, I had to create that myself. And so while I was at the radio station, and then back then in 2014, a new thing came out called, quote unquote, internet radio, which is podcasting. And I said, hey guys, I'm about to go and do my own thing. And the station manager laughed at me because they were like, who's going to listen to you on internet radio, which turned into Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Podcast. But before I went there to my own show, I did a couple of months at another station that actually hired me to do the show. Unfortunately, it was late at night on an AM station, and anybody that has experience in radio, you'll know that at nighttime an AM station has to pot down or lower their signal. So it really was akin to me like opening up a window and talking outside. You couldn't get a signal probably 15 or 20 miles from the station. So it was crazy. And I was like, you know what? This is confirmation. Let me create my own sweet spot, and I'm not going to delay my destiny any longer. And that's when Black Entrepreneur Blueprint came about. I started with the same concept, but I wanted to focus on a market that I was very familiar with, a market that I'm in. Okay, I am a Black entrepreneur, been a Black entrepreneur for 20 plus years. And I know some of the things that are intrinsic to us when it comes to starting, building, and growing businesses. So what I had to do was create my own sweet spot. And over these 7.5 years with BEB, I've done that. Another thing, I listened to an interview. This is another example. I listened to an interview with Dame Dash years ago, and he was talking about directing films or being a movie director. And he made the same type of comment. He said, what movie studio is going to hire me to direct a movie? So what do I have to do in order to get to that sweet spot and become a director? I got to create my own movie. And so now he writes, produces, directs, and even stars in some of his own movies. So once again, he created his own sweet spot. Now, did that happen overnight? No. But it's a process to get to that. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is some steps and some tips to get you to your sweet spot and stop having your destiny delayed by being validated or having to be validated by somebody else that doesn't know your heart, somebody else that doesn't know your skill or talent, somebody else that doesn't know what your calling is and what your destiny is. You know, everybody has their own calling. Everybody has their own dreams. Everybody has their own visions, and those visions are given to you by a higher power. So the vision of being an entrepreneur, you know, somebody else, your wife or spouse or partner may not have got that vision for you. But guess what? It's your vision. It's your assignment. It's your destiny. And so you have to walk into that. You have to take hold of that. You have to take control of that. And don't worry about other people validating you. You validate yourself. And we're going to talk about some steps and some tips to do that. So the first step or the first tip is become self-aware. Know yourself. Okay. And I'm not just talking about being superficial. Like, what do you like? What don't you like? What are you good at? What makes you happy? We all know that. But really do a self-assessment and dig down deep. And a lot of times that starts by either meditating or taking some time to yourself each and every morning or each and every day. So when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is I usually take about 15 to 20 minutes just to think. I'll either lay in my bed and think, you know, make sure I don't check the phone, anything like that, any of my emails, and I'll just sit down and think, or I'll go downstairs and sit in the family room or the living room, and I'll just sit down and meditate and think. And a lot of times you know yourself when you're by yourself, when you have time to process. So become self-aware, know yourself. What do you really want? Where are you trying to go? What is your destiny? Okay? What is your assignment? And so those are the things that you have to start off with. You got to know or be self-aware and know yourself first and foremost. You know that if you're good at something, you know if you're bad at something, if you can't keep up habits, right? You know this. So you got to figure out a way to get from A to B. You know, some people can't stay on track. They're going here, they're going there, and they know they have trouble focusing. So know yourself, okay? Step number 2 or tip number 2, decide to live your truth. And so I know that sounds simple, but whatever that means to you, live it. What are you destined to do? What are you destined for? Who do you want to serve? Make real decisions backed by actions, not just thoughts. Decide to live your truth. Damn it, I'm tired of this. I'm going to live my truth, whatever that is and whatever it costs me. Well, to a certain extent. You don't want to lose your family or loved ones or whatever. But in some instances, if they don't understand what your truth is, sometimes you got to let people go. Not everybody's going to go on the ride with you. All right. Sometimes you're going to have to let people out at certain points on this journey. You're going to take some people in and you're going to let some people out. But decide to live your truth. What is that truth? And as long as you're not hurting anybody, do your thing. Do your thing. I don't care if it's your lifestyle. I don't care if it's your decision on what you want to become or what type of business you want to start. Do you. Decide to live your truth. And once again, a decision is backed by action. Okay, I used to tell my kids when they were little, the easiest thing that you can do in life is quit because it takes no action. All it is a thought. You know what? I'm tired of doing this workout routine. You know what? I'm just going to quit. And snap of a finger, as simple as that, it's done. Quitting is the easiest thing to do because it takes absolutely no effort whatsoever. But in terms to decide to live your truth, you have to do that by taking action, not just thoughts, but by taking action. Step with tip number 3. What is your ideal job or work situation, and how can you recreate that for yourself? So, for example, with my cousin's daughter, she wanted to be a social media manager for a company, right? And that company didn't validate her for whatever reason. Even though they liked her, they didn't validate her for whatever reason that was. So if you're an employee right now and you're in a situation where you're not happy, what is your ideal job? You want to identify that and then create that situation for yourself. Or you can actually create that job, but you do it within your own company or your own entity. So, for example, one of the pieces of advice I gave my cousin to give to his daughter is, okay, you want to be a social media manager, right? Why don't you start as the first client? You need to be your own social media manager and say, hey, look, this is where I am. I built up my social media. I built my platform up. I've done it for me. Guess what? I can do it for you. So even though you weren't validated by somebody else, you can validate yourself by showing and proving. Okay? Now, it's funny. When I first started at the radio station paying to play $400 a week, didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know how to interview people. And I still have my own style. I'm not a Tavis Smiley. I'm not, one of them type of serious journalists per se. I'm more conversational. So when I interview people, it's like we're sitting in the living room chopping it up. But I'm asking you certain questions and trying to pull out things that nobody else may have pulled out in some of their other interviews. And so once again, it's creating. Let me show you that I can do this by building myself up or whatever it is. And then that's proof. That's validation that she can use by building her own social media presence up and managing her own social media. So that's something that you got to look at too. The next tip or step is create your game plan. All right. You want to go from point A to B, right? All right. What steps do you need to take to bring this to fruition? So, for example, when I left the radio station, okay, I said, all right, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. This quote unquote internet radio thing we'll see what happens to it. But what I did was I said, you know what? Let me do the same thing that I was doing at the radio station. I had a format. I had a layout. The only difference was I didn't have live guests. So on a podcast, one of the hardest things to learn is if you don't have guests on is to be able to carry a show for 30, 45, 60 minutes or whatever by yourself. And that's something I really had to learn. So my game plan was let me do research on this quote unquote internet radio, which we all call podcasting now. Let me figure out how to create a show. Let me take the information or the know-how I got from the radio station and implement that into the show. Then I had to figure out, all right, how do I market the show? And I just started writing down the different steps to bring this to fruition. And so I tell everybody, the first episode I did in 2014, I had 172 listeners for the month. And I'm telling y'all, that was mostly family and friends. But I wasn't pressed. You see, my money wasn't coming from the podcast. It was coming from other areas, other investments, e-commerce, other things that I was doing. So I wasn't pressed. So I created that game plan and I stuck to the game plan. So that's the tip number 4. Create your game plan. And tip number 5, take calculated risks to create the situation. Sometimes when you're trying to move from A to B, it's not going to be comfortable. Most of the time, it's not going to be comfortable when you're doing something new, especially when you're bucking the system. Okay, we're talking about delayed destiny. The reason your destiny is delayed is because you're not taking action. Okay, you're waiting for somebody to validate you. I didn't wait for that radio station to hire me because I know no radio station will hire me at all. Okay, I have no experience. I have no track record. I had no following. Guess what? You know what? I got to pay to play. Here's $400 a week. Now, it's funny because I wasn't making money from the radio station because I didn't have any advertisers or anything like that. But what it taught me was how the operation worked. How does it look? Professionally, how does it look? And I had people at the radio station that had been hosting for years that were very nice, and they gave me tips. They showed me how everything worked. And they gave me that know-how that allowed me to take that first step and take that calculated risk to go out and say, you know what? I'm going on my own. I'm tired of having my destiny delayed. I'm tired of having to be validated by somebody else. And when you make that conscious, concerted effort, that's when things are going to change for you. You have to validate yourself. Now, before we get to the last quarter of the show, I want to share my social media contact information and my resource links. Now, because I talked about the partnership with Call-In earlier in the show, I'm not going to go through all the links. So I'm going to refer you to a page on my website. You can go to bebconnect.com, bebconnect.com. And on that page, you have links to all of my social media contact information. Please make sure you follow me on social media. And you also have links to all of the resources and then some that I mentioned at the beginning of the show. My new book, BeSmartByBlack.com, HireBlackFreelancers.com, BEBAcademy.com, all of that stuff and more. So just go to BEBconnect.com. So let's get to the last quarter of today's show. And really what I want to emphasize to you guys is getting to that sweet spot in business and in life. Not letting anybody validate or have to validate you to get to that point. Now, I don't know if you believe in a higher power or who your God force or what your God force is, if you have one at all. But doing what you know that you were born to do and being able to do that in an atmosphere or a situation where everything is aligned and you're comfortable. You know exactly where you're supposed to be. It's like putting on a pair of custom-made pants or a custom-fitted dress. You know that this is where you're supposed to be. And I talk about that when I talk about living in your genius. And your genius is the intersection of your passion and your talent. And if you want to break that down, I break it down very simply in 3 things. Do what you love, do something you're good at, and do something people will pay you for. Okay? And most times, if you can intertwine or interconnect those 3 things, then that's where your sweet spot is. And so it's not just about getting to your sweet spot. It's about constructing your sweet spot where it makes sense. And I always talk about building your business around your lifestyle, not your lifestyle around your business. You could be making a ton of money, working yourself to the bone, not being able to spend time with family and friends. That's not living in your sweet spot. Okay? So the longer that you delay, guys, from moving from point A to point B, your destiny is delayed. You're here for much more than just going to work. In the grand scheme of things, we're here to serve. And I don't know where your service lies. You got to figure out where that service lies. But when you find out where your service lies, and when you're getting paid for that service, and you're living in that sweet spot with everything aligned, your business, your lifestyle, your physical, your mental, your family, everything aligned, that's a beautiful place to be. Now, you're not always going to have everything aligned because it's called life, right? Life is going to happen. But the closer that you can be aligned in everything, the sweeter the spot is going to be. I had a conversation the other day with a friend of mine, and we were just talking about successful businesses, right? And a lot of times businesses aren't successful because they have too many variables. So when you have too many variables on the board, you know that something is going to happen with some of those variables. And the more variables you have, the more issues or problems you're going to have. And I say that to say this: when you are aligned and you are in or living in your sweet spot or in your genius, you don't have many variables because you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're exactly where the Creator wants you to be. Your destiny is not delayed. You're living in it. And I'm telling you guys, it's a hard road to get to that place. But if right now, if you're listening to this and you're driving into work or coming home from work and you can't stand your job, your destiny is delayed. If you have a business and you can't stand going to your business, you created a monster, your destiny is delayed. If you're going to your business and you're not making money, you can't keep your lights on or put gas in your car, your destiny is delayed. Stop letting people or things validate you. Create the situations that are going to create the sweet spot. Take the time to sit down and think, what is it going to take for me to reach this sweet spot? Like I said, number one, the first thing you want to do is become self-aware and know yourself. If you know that you don't like to work hard on Saturdays and Sundays, know that about yourself and formulate your plan around that. Okay? So understand where you want to go first. Decide that you're going to make a conscious effort to live your truth, whatever that truth is. As long as you're not hurting anybody, you good. As long as you're not hurting anybody, you're good. All right. Number 3, what is your ideal job or situation and how can you recreate that? It's funny because I've talked on the show before about a box. So if you're an employee, right, you have a box. You come into your job, you have a job description, and you have all of the support around that job description. So they give you a cubicle. They give you your job description. They give you the tools to do your job. And you may do your job well. The question is, when you're trying to create your sweet spot, it's not a plug and play. You're the one that's going to have to create that environment or that system for you to be successful. So when I talk about my cousin's daughter, the social media manager, she wanted the social media manager job at a company, right? Now she's going to have to create that environment for her to be successful as her own social media manager. And just because you can become successful as an employee in a certain position doesn't necessarily transition or transfer to you becoming successful in that same position on your own, because you have a support system and a box that you're fitting in. You're a key and you're a cog in the wheel when you're working with a company. Now you have to recreate that. So I want you to make sure that you dig deep and think about how you can recreate that situation. All right. Tip number 4, create your game plan. Tip number 5, take calculated risks to get to your destiny. And it's so crazy, man. As I've seen classmates pass away in the last year. You got this COVID stuff going on. Family members just buried one of my aunts about a month ago, dealing with my own issues, medical issues, nothing major, but dealing with that. It really makes you think about longevity or time you have left. And so when you're listening to this, we're not promised a day. God forbid something can happen to us tomorrow, in the next 5 minutes or whatever. So don't delay your destiny any longer. I'm not saying going out there if you have a job and tell your boss, hey, man, I'm out today. The hell with it. Create a game plan. Understand what your sweet spot looks like and start creating that sweet spot. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it. Now, let me give you a caveat to that. So if your sweet spot is you want to be a police officer, guess what? You got to go through the police academy and go through the proper procedures. You want to be a fireman, right? You can't take your F-150 pickup truck with buckets of water in the back of it talking about you going to put out fires. There's a process and there's certain things that you just can't create on your own. Remember, your sweet spot is a situation. It's not a job. It's not a business. It's a situation. And to break it down once again to its bare essence, do what you love, do what you're good at, and do something people will pay you for, and you'll never work a day in your life. Because what that is doing, guys, is when you do those three things, that means you are aligned. Now, once again, there are other factors involved. You don't want to be overworked and underpaid, but that's the bare essence of working or creating your sweet spot in business and in life, and how not to let anybody else delay your destiny. Now, I was a little all over the place at the end of today's show, but really I was just talking from the heart as I normally do. And I just wanted to get out to you guys and express to you how important it is for you to really be making a concerted effort every day to create that sweet spot and eventually get there and be living in that sweet spot. It's that important. It's life-changing. It's life-changing. So forgive my rambling at the end, but I had to get that out, and it's coming straight from the heart. Now, before we close on out, family, I say this each and every week. We get more and more downloads because of you guys, the BEB family, and I thank you so much for that. Please continue to spread the word about the podcast and the blog. Once again, it's more than that. It's a movement. It's about building an economic power base in the worldwide Black community by building and supporting Black-owned businesses. Also, don't forget to come holler at your boy tomorrow. Every Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific, starting tomorrow, November 9th, 2021. We're going to be here live every Tuesday with my new exclusive program, Ask Jay Live. Get all your entrepreneurial questions answered. We're going to have guests on some shows that are going to answer questions live. I'll be there to answer live questions. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys out there. You can go to callin.com and then search for Jay Jones at Ask Jay Live, or you can go to BEB Connect or Ask Jay Live, and all of the links will be right there. Love you guys. See you same time next week, but hopefully I'll see you tomorrow on Ask Jay Live. Love y'all. Peace.